Hey, hello everyone, my name is Dinesh Krishnan. In this video, we're going to learn few annotations that are available in the JUnit framework. So far, we have used only one annotation called test annotation. By using this annotation, we just simply written one hello world example, right? So now let's explore few more annotations that are available in the JUnit framework, right? So in order to do that, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply rename this method. I'm going to call this method actually test case 1. So I'm going to print, instead of hello world, I'm going to print test case 1. So now I just renamed this method. So now what I want, consider I want to call this test case, but before this test case I want some other method to be executed. So in order to do that, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the method public void. I'm going to call this method actually before. So let me simply print before. So since I told you I want this method to be executed before my test case, so I can annotate this method actually before. So make sure that the before from org.junit framework. Now let me run this test case. You can see I'm trying to run only the individual test case. So the output is very clear. So whenever I'm running this test case, so before executing this test case, the before method actually got called, right? Now you can see the output. Okay. So likewise, I just want another method to be called after my test case. For example, once my test case is executed successfully, I want some method to be called after the test case. So I have to do that. So I'm going to call the method called public void after. So I'm going to simply say that after. So obviously, you would have guessed this. So we're going to annotate it as after annotation. Okay. So now let me run this test case. So the output is going to be again as expected. So now you can see actual test case actually ran. So before the test case, the before method is called. After the test case is executed, after method is called, right? So now consider what happens, if we have one more test case in this class. So let me create another test case. I'm going to call this test case actually test case 2. I'm going to simply print system.out.println. This is out. I'm going to say test case 2. I'm going to annotate this test case to actually test. So now let me run both the test cases. So to run that, I have to right click on top of the class. So let me run the enter class. Now we have two test cases available. So now you can see both the test cases actually executed. You can see the output. So the test case 1, before going to call the test case 1, before method is called, and then after the test case 1, after method is called. Likewise, the same is applicable for the test case 2 as well. So what you are trying to understand from here, how many test cases you have, that's not a problem. Every test case will call the before annotated method as well as after annotated method. So before the execution as well as after the execution of the test case. Now consider you want one specific method to be called before the loading the class, right? So in order to do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one method. I'm going to create the method. So whenever I said I want method to be called before the class in the sense, so obviously it sounds like the static method. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the static method, public static void. I'm going to call this method actually before class. So system.out.println. So I'm going to say before class, right? I'm going to annotate this method actually before class. So now let me execute this particular test case. We'll see what is going to happen. Here we go. Now you can see the output. So the before method, after method is called for the each test case, and then but this method is called only one time before the class actually loaded into the JVM, because since it's a static method, right? So now likewise, I want to call another method after the class is trying to exit from the JVM, or is what, once all the execution is done, I want one specific method to be called. In the sense, the same is like I can call the method actually what, public static void. I'm going to call this method actually what, after class system.println. I'm going to call what, after class. I'm going to annotate it as what, after class. So now let me run this example. Now you can see what, we got an output, right? So you can see that before class method is called, before the class is getting loaded, and after class method is called, once the class is actually completed its entire process, right? So likewise, we can use what, before class, before test, then after classes annotation in our JUnit framework.